With it, let me tell you about a woman whose name you've likely never heard but whose hidden secret altered the fate of thousands. It begins not in the silence of peace, but in the thunder of war, when nations stood on the brink and one final push could have drowned them all in blood. Imagine for a moment a battlefield where soldiers clutched rifles tighter than their own breath, where orders echoed through the smoke, and where one woman walked calmly into the chaos, carrying a secret no bullet could pierce. She was not dressed in a uniform. To the untrained eye she appeared fragile, almost misplaced among the hardened men with their steel helmets and fire in their eyes. But there was something in her stride, steady, fearless, that silenced whispers as she passed. Her name was Selene, and she carried on her back a mark that no one had seen in years. A mark that had been forgotten by governments, erased by treaties, and buried in old archives no one dared open again. The war had been raging for 3 years, an endless cycle of betrayal and counterattacks. Borders shifted like sand, cities burned, and children grew up learning the language of fear. Both sides had reached a point where surrender was unthinkable, but victory was impossible, and so they bled until whispers of Selene reached the ears of commanders who believed in nothing but their own weapons. She entered the war council on a storm-soaked night. Generals glared, officers scoffed, and one of them muttered, "What can a woman do here?" But she stood tall and unclasped the cloak from her shoulders. The room froze, not because of the cold, but because of what they saw. Ink, dark, bold, intricate, spread across her back like a map. It wasn't a symbol of rebellion or faith, but something far older, the seal of concord. Legends spoke of it as a treaty written not on parchment but on skin, a pact etched in living flesh. Centuries ago, when kingdoms first warred with iron and fire, the leaders had sworn to carve this mark into one bloodline. That family, and that family alone, had the power to call an end to war by invoking the ancient covenant. But history had swallowed the truth, leaving only whispers and half-remembered tales. The generals leaned forward, their skepticism cracking. Some called it forgery, a desperate trick. Others demanded proof. Selene gave them none. She simply turned, looked each man in the eye and said, "If you march tomorrow, not one of you will return alive. This war has reached its end, because I say so." And then she walked out. For that night, commanders argued till their throats burned. Outside, the storm raged, lightning tearing the sky like veins of fire. Soldiers, unaware of the debate, loaded rifles and kissed medals for luck, ready to die by dawn. And yet, something in the camp shifted. Rumors traveled faster than orders. Men whispered of the woman with the tattoo, the living covenant. Some laughed it off. Others prayed, but none could deny the unease that settled in their bones. By morning, the battlefield stood ready. Armies faced each other across a valley scarred by craters and smoke. The signal was about to be given, and then it happened. Selene stepped between them, no weapon in her hands, no armor on her body, only the cloak she had cast aside the night before, now flapping in the wind like a banner. A single gunshot cracked the air, but no one knew from which side. The bullet missed her. Or perhaps, some whispered, it was deflected by the mark itself. She did not flinch. Instead, she raised her arms and turned her back to both armies, letting them see the seal in full daylight. It was unmistakable now. The lines of the tattoo seemed to shimmer, alive with something beyond ink, as though the storm itself recognized the ancient vow. The silence spread, one so thick it drowned out even the drums of war. Hardened soldiers, men who had seen comrades die beside them, lowered their rifles without meaning to. Eyes widened, hands shook, and in that moment, the will to fight drained away, as though ripped from their very souls. The commanders on both sides, furious, humiliated, shouted for the attack to resume. Yet even their voices faltered, caught in the spell of the sight before them. No man dared fire, no man dared break the silence. The seal of concord had been seen, and its power was absolute. The war ended that day, not with treaties signed in ink, not with the crushing of one side, but with the memory of a woman who walked unarmed into the valley of death and made men lower their guns. Selene vanished soon after. Some say she walked back into the storm and was never seen again. Others claim she lived in quiet villages, tending to fields as though she had never carried the weight of nations on her back. Her name was never written in the official records. Governments buried her story, preferring to claim they had negotiated peace through strength. But soldiers remembered. Those who stood in that valley told their children, and their children told theirs, of the woman whose secret tattoo stopped a war. And so the memory survives, not in textbooks or parades, but in hushed voices around fires, in the legends carried by those who once gripped rifles and found their hands unwilling to kill. They remember the storm, the silence, and the ink that glowed like a promise no one dared to break. If you ever find yourself in an old tavern in that region, you may still hear it. The story of Selene, the woman who carried peace on her skin. The forgotten guardian who reminded the world that sometimes the sharpest weapon is not a blade, nor a bullet, but a secret carried until the world is ready to believe.